welcome everybody. We have a huge issue to discuss here today, a panel of brilliant experts, but we only have 25 minutes, so I'll get straight on with it. I'll introduce the panel. Ating Liu is the head of the London Cancer Hub Capital Programme at the London Borough of Sutton, so delivering national infrastructure but from within local government. Sophie Eynon is the Electric Vehicle Charging Hubs Programme Manager, Places for London, so London-wide impact and influence. And Clare Wildfire is the Global Cities Lead from Mott MacDonald, so has a real international, global perspective for us. The exam question is what role transport-orientated development and transport interchanges can play in addressing increasing urban density and placemaking. And the first question I'm going to ask each member of the panel to talk about is a challenge that's existed throughout my entire 40-year career. Across the UK transport and land use planning remain poorly integrated, leading to uncoordinated housing and transport infrastructure developments. So how can we overcome the institutional barriers, long-term deep-seated challenges, to align them for more effective transport-oriented development? And I'll start with Clare.
Thank you. I thought you were going to go the other way, but I will keep it simple. Just as a quick, for those who don't know Mott MacDonald, the way I like to think about it is we design the systems that keep cities running. And as global practice lead, I then am in the place of joining them up. And so I'm, by background, an engineer, so I'm not an urban planner and I'm not a transport planner. And my observation as a bit of a synthesizer is that there are, in this context, the urban designers are brilliant at creating vibrant places and the transport planners are brilliant at creating the situation for efficient and safe transport. But there is this sort of messy middle where there is the need for trade-offs, and we need more people who are comfortable in that space and who are okay to sort of say, I don't really understand why you're driving me towards this, and being able to compromise on those trade-offs. And I will give you one example of where I've seen the governance set this up really well. So we worked on Bristol Temple Quarter, which is the redevelopment of Bristol Temple Mead Station, and the unlocking of the land around the station, including quite a large area to the east of the station that the upgrades would help in terms of mitigating the severance across the rail link. So the thing I was really impressed with was the project board. So it was set up with the Bristol City Council, the Combined Authority, Network Rail and Homes England, and they were all in a visible board creating the governance. And that meant that some of those conversations where what happened was, I don't understand why you're driving this or why the decision is going to take 2 years to make happen. They could have those conversations, which I think sort of then set the scene really well for this space where things got discussed out in the open, and then that messy middle got discussed. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Clare. Sophie, what would you like to add to that?
So just by way of introduction, Places for London is a wholly owned subsidiary of Transport for London, so a major transport operator in London. Hopefully everyone used some form of transport to get here today. But we are a commercially focused kind of property arm of TfL. And what we are really doing is trying to use both our public kind of sector knowledge, experience, entity in itself, and work out ways of how to bring together people a bit more and convene more conversations, convene more partnerships to deliver the most effective developments around transport nodes, which we have the privilege to own and control at the moment. So I guess our key kind of learning out of a lot of the developments that we've done is really a drive towards agile, flexible, long-term public-private partnerships and strategic relationships. So Places for London's got 9 joint ventures at the moment, which we are partnering with the likes of Barratt's, Ballymore on residential developments, and on more my wheelhouse of electric vehicle charging, we've got FastNed. So these really allow us to leverage the efficiencies of the private sector, convene a lot of conversations with senior people amongst the public sector and really make sure that we've got a long-term solution that isn't just a shiny entity when it's built. It actually takes into account the long-term maintenance, the long-term ownership, and keeping these locations, these transport developments, looking as good as they do on a day one basis and meeting the needs of a changing London over the years.
Thank you, Sophie. And I think those partnership and collaboration are words that keep coming up as in all the sessions I've been listening to. Ating.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ating. I work for London Borough Sutton. Clare and Sophie have already got this great view there. So I'm going to speak about this from the local authorities' point of view. From what we've been experienced, that people do submit planning applications. They just tell that, well, I'm going to build 200 homes there. And then when they started working on the planning application, they started to realize, oh, I need a junction improvement, I need a car parking space, I need trains and buses to serve the area. So in that case, and the infrastructure transport solutions comes after the 200 homes thoughts. So I think that's all about here. What we're doing here today is that to shift that perspective and for people to think about for transport to lead that regeneration and the growth vision that we want to achieve. And also I think for local authorities, they need to take a strategic leadership role by collaborating partners and stakeholders together to set a collective vision there for people to achieve. That's the vision, and that's what we are going to achieve. So that's quite important. And also other challenges may come up after that. So for example, that's other challenges like funding issues, consultations with residents and businesses, and then you have to get political buy-in for your ideas. And I do recognize that currently in the industry, there isn't a clear guidance set out the step-by-step for people to follow. That's what you need to do for that. And it's simply because that's, each project is different, and the challenges we're facing are quite different. So it's simply just you can't have the guidance for everything. And it's just rely on us, the professionals, leaders, officers here, to assess each individual project and come up with appropriate approach and suitable for your projects. So that just makes us better than AI.
Thank you so much. Now I've got some follow-up questions, and I'll go to Sophie for this one. Sophie, how can transport interchanges serve as anchors for mixed-use development that benefit local communities? Tell us about Places for London and what can the rest of the UK learn from London's experience?
Yeah. So, so Places for London, by virtue of our transport network, we've got 5,500 acres of land, and we are really using this as an opportunity to really reinforce mixed developments, to make sure that we benefit the local communities and don't create a versus scenario. We never want a community versus the commuters. I think if we deliver the right solution, which is what Places for London always tries to deliver, we should be able to accommodate both. So we work across 6 sectors: retail, residential, offices, arches, infrastructure, our car parks and electric vehicles, as well as skills and education. And as I mentioned previously, we enter into joint ventures to try and use the land, work out who's got the right expertise to help us actually deliver this on the ground. I feel as a public sector, we really try and put a lot of effort into working out what the long-term run is. But actually, how do we actually deliver it? And we need really effective, experienced operational delivery partners to do that with. But I guess an example that I've come here to talk about today is in 2021, when we realised we'd kind of looked at a lot of our land for the traditional transport-orientated development, so your property developments, your retail, making kind of livable communities. Once we'd worked out that we'd earmarked quite a lot of those locations, we got to a position of saying, well, what else do we do? What else can we bring to these locations that currently are underutilised because they don't quite fit the traditional sense of what transport-orientated development is? So we have entered into a new joint venture to deliver electric vehicle charging hubs. So this is complementary and, I guess, my saying is that it's like the fabric helps provide the fabric of the community, or the operational fabric of the community. So whilst alongside we deliver retail and property developments, we also need to recognise that there is an element of we need to provide infrastructure that supports these developments to run, supports local logistics companies for last mile deliveries, supports the local community. 60% of London don't have off-street parking. How do we support the transition to net zero and make sure that, you know, we are really truly speaking and delivering what we need in order to meet the net zero target that the Mayor puts in place? So yeah, in what we are doing at the moment is, where we can't identify housing, we are building ultra-rapid charging hubs. So they are 6 bays, accessible to everyone. The EV sector has a massive problem with accessibility. So we are making sure that they're accessible to everyone, as affordable as possible, provide retail in locations where there is nothing really at the moment in these industrial locations that are not used for housing, and really bringing vibrancy to the area, 24-hour presence, safety, accessibility, and making sure that these can become mobility hubs alongside all of the developments that come in the more traditional sense of transport-orientated development.
That's fantastic, and it's so good that you're talking about mobility hubs and also the emphasis you're giving to the long-term success of these projects, that they're not just delivered now, but you're thinking about how they'll be in 25 or 50 years' time. Thank you. So, Ating, how can local authorities and transport agencies work together to ensure that transport investments drive wider regeneration?
Thanks, Carolyn. That's a great question. So as, given my role in the London Cancer Hub, I'm going to use that as an example. The London Cancer Hub is one of the major regeneration programs in Sutton, which was highlighted in the recent published London Growth Plan as one of the key growth sector in London for life science and cancer treatment. So with the London Cancer Hub development, the council is established with a partnership and working with partners already at the site to develop that. Once it's fully developed, we will generate 13,000 jobs and contribute 1.2 billion to the UK economy. So that's the size of, the scale of the development at Sutton. And the council has established a stakeholders relationship with transport agencies, including Department for Transport, Network Rail, Govia Thameslink Railway, who's a train operating company, and Transport for London. And the council secured 14 million from Levelling Up Fund to improve the rail service to support that growth in the area. Since we got the funding and we started to deliver the project, and we got colleagues from DFT, Network Rail, and train operating companies that ask about us, say, looking at the map, it's quite green, and we can't think, why do you need to improve rail service there? And we said, come to our site and have a look. And when they had this site visit at London Cancer Hub, they were amazed about the development there. And that moment, I felt everyone was on board, and everyone understands the vision we're trying to achieve, and they are motivated, and they are all supported. So yeah, so that's quite a good example of how we built the relationship there, and that's why the Levelling Up Fund program is one of the returning programs following central government's budget review process. And I did ask about DFT colleagues, what do you think are we doing well or not doing well compared to other boroughs? And the feedback we got is that, well, your project apparently is not at the advanced stages as other projects, but your communication is very good. So I think the first key point here is about partnership, communications, and the trust. And the second thing I want to mention about is that's innovation is all about here. And we recently came across these discussions with DFT colleagues on the monitoring and evaluation plan for the Belmont Rail Scheme. And interestingly, colleagues asked me to look at their guidance and say, well, we think your program is a major program, so we think you should follow approach 2. Well, look at the menu, the guidance, and there are 2 options there. First is standard approach, and the second is enhanced approach. And the standard approach is about reports transport efficiencies like journey time saving, frequency improvement, and demand changes. And in the enhanced approach, apart from reporting these, you have to measure the impacts of environment, CO2, greenhouse gas. And when we look at that, I just thought our program's not about environment. Well, it will deliver some environment benefits as you think you will take cars away from the road. But it's not about the environment, it's about economic growth, it's about jobs, accessing these jobs created as a learning cancer hub. Then we discussed this with the DFT colleagues and said that instead of reporting environment benefit, can we report economic benefit, economic activities, business supported, and jobs created there? And amazingly, DFT agreed with that. So yeah, so you can see that it's a really positive sign that the department supports this innovative and flexible approach there. And I think that it's even just like tiny little step about innovation. It's not about something happened a day dramatic from the ground to the sky, but we're taking each small step to get there. And after all, we're looking at this, it's not about, we're looking at the guidance and taking all the boxes, and so we're working together to look at the long-term sustainability and make a real-world impact there. And last point I want to mention about is that for the Learning Cancer Hub, and I think it's for local authority to start thinking about now, rather than later. So think of something beyond the completion point. Let's say about in 10 years' time, that will be completed, that site. And for now, the local authorities might just need to start thinking about to work with transport agencies. In 10 years' time, beyond the completion point, how the Learning Cancer Hub development, how the operation will link to the Sutton Town Centre, link to adjacent boroughs, link to central London, other parts of the countries, and to internationally, and what transport support need to be in place to enable that. So that's all my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that just shows the value of bringing people to your site or your development and showing them what you're doing and understanding what you're trying to achieve. And I love that you pushed back against here's our standard schedule of monitoring, but actually we're trying to achieve this and that's what we want to monitor. Really, really innovative and important. So I'm going to come to Clare. So Clare, what are the most critical success factors in integrating transport hubs with their surrounding communities and urban fabric? And what can UK cities learn from cities abroad?
Thank you, and it's a great question to build on both what Ating and Sophie said. So I could talk about the obvious critical factors like sort of respecting the existing massing of the neighbourhoods or active sort of first floor. But the things I wanted to talk about are more about the communications and the people angles that you've touched on. And first thing is access isn't all just about transport. It's also about sort of digital access as we understood during the pandemic, and then spatial proximity as a sort of brilliant way of creating access and all sorts of other benefits, which I could go on about in terms of densification and sort of all sorts of things like that. But I wanted to use that to sort of think about where next for transport-oriented development could be access-orientated communities instead, so sort of bringing it to a different way of thinking. So some examples of what I mean by that, this wider appreciation of where people are coming from and going to, so not just, say, the station-to-station travel, but the door-to-door, and even what might make them choose to live where they're living. And there's a wonderful sort of example that someone told me about the Croydon tram, where they'd sort of they'd predicted ridership, and then they'd realised that more people were moving to live near the stops of the tram because they enjoyed travelling by tram. And so an example of that in Atlanta is their transport agency, Mott, has sort of enveloped in their TOD guidance that sort of the enjoyment of the ridership on the Mott sort of transit line should be built into the way that they're thinking about their development and sort of creating that co-design idea that I mentioned in the first place. And I also really like the ideas that created from the feminist city movement originally about travel being no longer mostly about going from one place to another, and this concept of trip chaining. In fact, that you're often, working parent having to go and pick up a birthday card or a birthday cake or dry cleaning or whatever. And it makes me think about what I notice in London transport hubs about all the radials. There was pre-pandemic, admittedly, usually, a small supermarket or a pharmacy or something, and the fact that it's that recognition that you don't just go to a big supermarket at the weekend, you're having to rush around. And I think those are the things that make for really vibrant spaces. And then also in this concept of the community orientated, it's working with the existing community as well, bringing them into the picture of what this new development is going to do with them. And there are some good examples in Australia of that communication using sort of storytelling and personas to help the existing community or new members understand what it's going to be like in that community. And final thing is the vibrancy coming from diversity of occupation. And so it's Caltrain in California, their TOD guidelines, they're pretty bullish about mandating affordable housing targets. So making sure that that's built in from the beginning of the understanding that that's what makes a vibrant community, not just sort of homogenous types of occupation.
Thank you so much. And I really love that we've actually redefined the question here that we were talking about. We're now talking about mobility hubs and access-orientated communities. Now, this has gone so quickly. I'd like to talk all day about this, but are there any questions from the audience? I haven't had any come through on Slido. We've got time only for one. So. Yes, please.
Andrew Ross from Global Garden. Have you considered issuing a green bond to raise the funds for Places for London?
Well, at Places for London, we're an independent, kind of commercially independent organisation. So we have raised up to £200 million in funding, debt funding, to support our activity, so that we are kind of able to, irrespective of TfL's financial position, able to continue investing in a long-term horizon. We haven't yet gotten to that stage of issuing green bonds, but that is maybe something that we could look into going forward. But yeah, we need to demonstrate delivery at the moment. We need to demonstrate drawdown on the current debt facility that we have, to make sure that we've got the confidence and the support to actually, bring attention to that. So it's something that we could consider going forward, but again, just need homes on the ground, retail built, so that we can evidence that we're an investable.
It is the lowest cost finance available.
We'll take a note. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We're out of time. Could you please show your appreciation to our amazing panel?